If you couldn't already tell, it's almost 2024, so now as the year is almost done and the 2023 theme park season is well over, it's once again time to look ahead to 2024 in the amusement industry and to all the new coasters opening next year. 2023 was a great year and 2024 will certainly be intriguing. There's lots of manufacturers attempting to prove why they're some of the best in the business, other manufacturers going in a different direction than they're used to, and some trying to make a name for themselves. Interestingly enough, most of 2024's major coasters are coming to places other than the USA, and there's lots of rides that you might not have heard of. So, without further ado, here are all of next year's major coasters. I'll be splitting this video into two sections because for a lot of these new rides, not a lot is known about the experience itself, so they'd be almost impossible to rank alongside coasters that have a fully confirmed layout. With that being said, let's talk about the new Fire in the Hole going to Silver Dollar City. This is one of quite a few revamped rides opening next year alongside All-American Triple Loop, Nemesis, Shockwave, Top Thrill 2, and Thunderbolt. Fire in the Hole will be an RMC family coaster / dark ride hybrid that pays homage to the original, delivering a family-friendly ride experience. As someone who rode the original, this is a welcome update. Fire in the Hole, although fun, was pretty outdated, and I'm excited to see what RMC and Silver Dollar City do with it. Jungle Rush, going to Dreamworld in Australia, will be a dynamic family coaster built by Vekoma. It'll feature several unique elements like an inclined turntable, backward sections, and show sections. Recently, manufacturers such as Vekoma have been upping their game when it comes to what the family coaster can do, and I hope to see more of that competition going forward because it's a really interesting part of the industry that could lead to more unique designs like this one. Universal Studios Japan will be expanding their Super Nintendo World area and adding a brand new coaster themed to Donkey Kong. I was just talking about the growing innovation when it comes to family coasters, and this is a great example of that. I'm not sure who's manufacturing this. If I had to guess, I'd say Intamin, please comment if you know, but this is a very interesting concept that not too much is known about. According to this announcement, it'll utilize the boom coaster technology patented a few years ago, where the train is connected to a section of track under the one it appears to be on, which would result in an illusion that the train is jumping between track pieces. Again, not too much is known about this, but it seems really interesting. Another coaster going to Universal Park is Fast and Furious Hollywood Drift going to Universal Studios Hollywood. This park was in desperate need of a new coaster, and they certainly got it with this ride. A lot of what we've heard about this coaster is just speculation, but it seems to be an extreme coaster from Intamin with a few inversions and cars that kind of spin. I say kind of spin because it seems as if the rotation of the vehicles won't be used for the actual ride itself, but rather to reduce noise, which is a major problem the park has to contend with. Nevertheless, this ride looks amazing, and I can't wait to follow construction. It's supposed to open in late 2024. Skyline Park was rumored to be getting a Gerstlauer hypercoaster for the 2024 season, but little to nothing has progressed with that idea, and I doubt it'll open next year, if ever. I made a short on it a while back, and most of the responses seem to agree that the project had likely been scrapped. If this does get built, I'm sure it'll be amazing, but I don't see it happening. The Chinese amusement industry has been expanding extremely rapidly over the past 10 years, and 2024 is no exception. There's coasters like a Zamperla Thunderbolt, Jinma Broken Rail Coaster, Vekoma Top Gun Launch Coaster, and Space Warp, alongside two interesting projects that have been in development for the past few years. Sunak Cultural Tourism City is a theme park under development that I've talked about quite a few times on the channel, and it's now fully under construction. The park will be home to a Mach Hypercoaster, a Power Splash, a Mauer Spinner, which I believe is a clone of Now You See Me High Roller at Motion Gate, and a family coaster alongside a massive Ferris wheel, which has already been built. It'll be interesting to see how this park develops in construction, and I'm especially excited for that Mach Hyper. The other park under construction is Nickelodeon Universe in Ube. This was supposed to open a few years ago, but I haven't been able to find too many updates regarding its development. That's a shame because this park was going to be home to Turbo Turtle Power, a multi-launch coaster by Intamin similar to TMNT Shellraiser at the Nickelodeon Universe in the American Dream Mall. If you have any information about this project, please leave a comment. Anyway, on to the fun stuff, the ranking part of the list. Obviously nobody's ridden any of these coasters because they're not open yet, so I can only rank them based on how good they look and my personal opinions regarding similar rides. Of course, I won't go over every single confirmed coaster opening next year because there's a ton of random family coasters in China and other stuff like that that would be super boring to talk about. On to the list. Starting off with number 20 is Phoenix Rising, a B&M family invert going to Busch Gardens, Tampa. This is only the third installation of this model with the other two at Happy Valley Parks in China. With this being a family coaster, it obviously won't be an amazing ride, but is sure to bolster BGT's collection, acting as a stepping stone coaster in the same way Cobra's Curse does. I'm sure it'll be fun. I hope the park actually decides to theme it well, but there's far more interesting rides to talk about. One of those interesting rides is a Gerstlauer invert going to Parque del Café in Colombia. We saw the first of these inverts open with Storm the Dragon Legend at Tusenfried, and while this one won't be launched or as extreme, it still looks like an interesting ride. While I don't believe the layout's been 100% confirmed, the stats are identical to this concept I found on Gerstlauer's website, so that's most likely what the coaster will be. Parque del Café is actually home to another Gerstlauer, a Eurofighter called Crater. This new ride will be a family coaster similar to Dragakongen at your Summerland or some of Vekoma's larger suspended family coasters, and should deliver a fun experience. Coming in at number 18 is Fjord Explorer going to Le Pal in France. This will be a mock water coaster similar to Krampus Expedition at Nigloland, which I'm a pretty big fan of. Construction for this ride's well underway, and while it probably won't be the best ride in the park, it's sure to be a solid coaster with a pretty weird name. Next is Vindfald, a Gerstlauer Eurofighter going to Tivoli Friheden in Denmark. It'll replace Cobra, their Sartori invert that was removed in 2022 after an unfortunate fatal accident. Something that sticks out immediately about Vindfald is the length, under 1,000 feet of track. That makes it the shortest extreme Gerstlauer. It literally has 3 elements. I'm not the biggest fan of Eurofighters anyway, so this might be higher on some other people's lists, but for me, this is where it places. One spot higher is Penguin Trek, a B&M launched family coaster going to SeaWorld Orlando. Penguin Trek's already been analyzed to death by other coaster channels, so I'm not going to talk about it too much since there's a lot to uncover in regards to its significance in B&M's transformation, but if you want to hear more about it, go check some of those videos out. In my opinion, it seems like a good ride in and of itself. Moving on. In 15th, we have the unnamed Intamin Ultra Surf going to Six Flags Over Georgia. This is the first installation of this new model, which is essentially a mock Power Splash mixed with an Intamin Surf Rider. It'll be interesting to see how it compares to the Power Splash, both in terms of the experience itself and how much it sells over the next few years. I think this is a great fit in Over Georgia's lineup since they're missing a launch coaster, and the water aspect of the ride will mix nicely with the area's hot climate. Another Six Flags coaster is Bobcat going to Six Flags Great Escape, which will be the park's first new coaster in almost 20 years. This will be a Gravity Group family wooden coaster similar to Oscar's Wacky Taxi at Sesame Place and Wood Express at Park St. Paul. These smaller scale Gravity Group woodies are popping up in lots of places around the world, which is great because they provide very solid experiences with strong airtime, especially considering their small size. Bobcat's obviously not going to be world class, but it'll be a welcome addition to a park that hasn't had many of them. At number 13 is Hot Wheels Twin Mill Racer going to Mattel Adventure Park in Arizona. The ride will open with the park next year along with the Chance Rides family coaster. Speaking of Chance Rides, that's also who built Twin Mill Racer. It's a Hyper GTX, but much different than Lightning Run, the other coaster of the same model. Unlike Lightning Run, which has a lift till and doesn't invert, instead focused on airtime, Hot Wheels Twin Mill Racer will be launched and feature 4 inversions. It's an interesting concept unlike anything else opening this year, so I'm excited to see how it rides. Next up is Iron Menace, a B&M dive coaster going to Dorney Park. It's one of the smaller dives that were popular in Europe in the 2010s, but now have started to be introduced to American parks such as Emperor or Dr. Diabolical's Cliffhanger. As for how Iron Menace compares to those others, it seems pretty standard. The Beyond Vertical Drop is a nice touch, but there's nothing special layout-wise. However, dive coasters are always fun, and Iron Menace looks to have a nice collection of elements. If anything else, just like Bobcat, it's a welcome addition to a chain park that had previously been lacking in new investments. Moving back to Europe brings us to Wallaby Rhone Alps for Mahuka and Intamin Hot Racer. This is the second installation of the model after Big Dipper at Luna Park Sydney. Like that ride, Mahuka will be a multi-launch, but it won't be as long as Big Dipper with under 2,000 feet of track. Despite that, Mahuka looks to have a better collection of elements with more inversions and airtime moments. This coaster adds to Wallaby Rhone Alps' already good collection of coasters that's really underrated in my opinion. They already have Mystic, a Gerstlauer Infinity coaster, and Timber, a Gravity Group family woody like Bobcat, and now they're adding Mahuka, which were all built in the last 8 years. This park is getting better and better. Moving into the top 10, we have Palindrome. This is the first of 2 coasters going to Codaland in Texas, another new park opening next year. Palindrome was scheduled to open last year but was delayed to 2024, and it's a Gerstlauer Shuttle Infinity coaster with a really unique layout. It's got a twisted drop, a zero-G stall, which is the first on any Gerstlauer, a wave turn, barrel roll, and this funky double-up that acts as a spike. The ride Palindrome's the most similar to is probably Mystic at Wallaby Rhone Alps, which I haven't had a chance to ride, but it seems really good. Once Codaland opens, it'll already have a great top 2 with Palindrome and another ride that we'll get to in a bit. In 2018, Senza Fiato closed at Miragica, which was an intimate accelerator coaster. Next year, it'll open back up at Playland after being modified by Zamperla and will be called Thundervolt. Zamperla completely overhauled the launch system and built new trains, much like they're doing with a certain other ride. Thunderbolt will have a pretty simple layout with turns and twisted airtime hills similar to other accelerators such as Rita, but the real question is how well the revamp will work. Zamperla doesn't have the best track record coaster-wise, and 2024 will be a huge year for them to prove themselves as a legitimate option for thrill coasters. The first of quite a few Vekomas in the top half of this list is the unnamed suspended thrill coaster going to Emerald Park in Ireland. I've been on the first STC, Halzuberkopf at Tripsdrill, and found it to be a very solid ride with great inversions, good airtime, and intense positives. While this new coaster has a different layout, it seems to be pretty similar, and if it rides anything like the original, will mesh well with Kusha Lane for a great top 2. Just like Halzuberkopf, it'll be built alongside a Vekoma family boomerang, creating some fun interactions between the two coasters. On its own, it looks to be a great ride. In 7th is All-American Triple Loop, which is by far the oldest coaster on this list. Despite it opening next year at Indiana Beach, this ride was originally built in 1984, where it operated as a traveling coaster, then moved from a park in Malaysia to Flamingo Land in the UK, and then to La Feria in Mexico, where it was called Chimera and closed in 2019 due to a terrible accident. This accident had nothing to do with the coaster itself, rather with how the park was running it, so it'll be completely safe at Indiana Beach. If you want to know more about the accident, there's a great video by Coaster College linked in the description. As for the coaster itself, it's built by Schwarzkopf and contains 3 intense loops. I'm excited to see it at Indiana Beach, and it's sure to provide a thrilling and very intense experience. Next is a coaster that's not exactly new, but I'm sure people are going to debate if it's a new credit or not, Nemesis at Alton Towers. Nemesis was closed for the entire 2023 season for a full retrack similar to what was done to Hulk at Islands of Adventure, and Nemesis will feature the exact same layout but with a new color scheme that's way worse. I visited Towers in 2023, so I wasn't able to ride Nemesis, but it'll be fun to see what people think about the new version when compared to the old one regarding how well the elements hit and the experience as a whole. Moving into the top 5 brings us to Top Thrill 2. Everyone knows about this ride's history, so I'm not going to waste your time with that. As for the Zamperlification, I think it's the best realistic option Cedar Point could have gone with. While it seems very risky for the park to have gone with a manufacturer like Zamperla for the project, Cedar Point's not going to do anything that could jeopardize the future of this ride, so I think Top Thrill 2 will be a bit of a downgrade from Dragster, but a worthy coaster in its own right. Besides, if you don't like it, it's at Cedar Point. Go ride Steel Vengeance or something. In 4th is Flash Vertical Velocity, the new Vekoma Super Boomerang going to Six Flags Great Adventure. So now American enthusiasts can finally shut up because they got their new gen Vekoma. And what a great one to get. The Super Boomerang looks like one of Vekoma's best models, and Cloud Shuttle, the one already open at Phantom Wild Wonderland, seems fantastic. There's definitely problems with capacity, especially at a bigger park like Great Adventure, but this layout is fantastic. There's airtime and some awesome inversions that are taken both forward and backward. I wouldn't mind this model popping up at a bunch of other parks at all. But the best Vekoma opening next year, if it does end up opening, and the best new coaster coming to the USA, is Circuit Breaker at Codaland. The star of the show with this ride is the tilt track, but Circuit Breakers by no means is a one-trick pony. It is a fantastic layout as well, with all sorts of unique elements like a rollover camelback into a downward zero-G roll, both elements seen on their Top Gun launch coasters, and some ejector airtime hills. It's not a super long ride, but does a ton with the length it does have. However, I'm not sure if this will open next year. It hasn't officially been pushed back to 2025, but track just began arriving on site about a month ago, and when you combine that with the park's delay to late 2024 and the ongoing construction of Palindrome, might lead to a later opening date. Despite that, this will be an awesome ride whenever it ends up opening. In 2nd place is Hyperia, going to Thorpe Park in the UK. Now, I'm not a British enthusiast, but I talked to quite a few of them, and it's actually insane how crazy they're going about this ride. Because of this, I don't feel I'm exactly qualified to talk about Hyperia, so instead I brought in one of those crazy British enthusiasts to give his completely unbiased opinions on it. Take it away, Asterisks.
Hey, I'm Asterisk, and I'd just like to thank Coaster Critic for allowing me to talk about this ride. There's literally been my obsession ever since it was announced. The ride itself will stand 236 foot tall and will reach 81 miles an hour, while also being the UK's tallest coaster, and the tallest coaster actually ever built by Mack Rides. It will undoubtedly be the best coaster in the UK, yes, better than Nemesis and Icon, and should be an incredibly intense experience. This will probably make up for the fact that it's actually on the shorter side, but I'd rather an intense short ride over a long one with a load of dead spots, and I'm actually glad for once they didn't go with B&M since this layout is extremely unique. To put it simply, I'm beyond excited, and so are many others, to be giving it a go next year. That drop in the back looks absolutely bonkers, and I swear Mac were probably on crack when designing this. Again, thank you so much Coaster Critic for allowing me to talk about this ride. Enjoy the rest of the video.
Hyperia does look amazing, but it's not the best mock coaster opening in Europe next year. That goes to Voltron at Europa Park, which takes the #1 spot on this list. While Hyperia might be more impressive with the length it does have, what puts Voltron ahead is the duration. This is Mach's second longest coaster in terms of track length and is split up into 2 distinct sections separated by a turntable, each containing inversions, airtime, pretty much the best of what Mach has to offer. Of course, with this being built at Europa Park, there's going to be some world-class theming as well. Voltron will be part of a new Croatian-themed area, and if it ends up looking like the concept art, that's just going to be another smash hit for the park. Europa Park is my favorite theme park in Europe, and with the addition of Voltron, which is sure to be their standout, and the themed area it's in, doesn't appear to be giving up that title anytime soon. So that's the list. Once again, this ranking is by no means set in stone since the coasters themselves haven't opened. It was based on how I think these rides will end up. I'm super excited to see people's reactions to all these new coasters, and even if 2024 isn't the best year for new additions, there's still some really good ones opening. Remember, this is a video about roller coasters opening next year, so it's possible that more news will be released after I've uploaded it. Because of this, I'll have a continuously updating pinned comment that will include more news about rides opening next year. That'll do it for this video. Drop a like if you enjoyed it, and go ahead and subscribe to see more videos just like it. Have a great day, goodbye.